Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. 3 days and counting, my friends, till the showdown we've been talking about all offseason. Well, we've been talking about basking in the glow of the national championship as well, but can't wait. 3 days away. So what have we learned so far during camp? With camp now really in the rearview mirror, what did we learn during camp? What did Ryan Day tell us yesterday? He was asked a lot of questions that we wanted answered, and we got some of those answers. And what questions still remain? There are a few things that Coach Day didn't maybe want to make a final call on quite yet, even though he probably knows. By probably, I mean definitely. Just didn't want to make it public. So Bax and I are going to get into all of that, and we'll take some of your questions and much more. Before we do that, I want to let you guys know about Vuori. And a great deal you guys can get. Vuori is stylish activewear that is designed to make you look great beyond the gym, whether you're running errands, heading to the office, meeting up with friends, or whatever the case might be. The gear is great for playing tennis or pickleball or whatever it might be. It's also great for just lounging around the house and watching like premier athletes like our Buckeyes play sports on TV. Again, we're talking style and comfort. That's a great combination. As for the comfort part of the equation, these are the softest joggers on the planet. They're lightweight and come with stretch fitting. And again, they are highly stylish. All the good stuff. Again, not your average jogger, that's for sure. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/bucknuts. That's VUORI.com/Bucknuts. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions. There you go. VUORI.com/Bucknuts. 20% off. Pretty good. Pretty good. How you doing, Bax? Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mr. Biddle. How we doing this fine Wednesday?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm just, it feels like the game's tomorrow. That's how close we are.
I wish the game was tomorrow, man. That would be great.
Know.
That was the best year that we ever had for Ohio State football. Was the year they started on a Thursday night against Marshall. Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
20 years ago almost. I'm going to say 2007 or 8. Maybe 2009, somewhere in that range.
Like
Either way, it was somewhere around then. It was a Wednesday night.
Was it 2010?
Man, I want to say it was like 08 or 9, personally.
You could be right.
I might be wrong. It might be 20. It was somewhere right around there. We're on the same page. But that was so great because we had like 2 less days to wait. And this goes back to my point of.
Yep, Marshall. Year? It was in 2010, Marshall, Ohio State.
All right, you got
45-7. No, they claim it doesn't count now. Terrell Pryor. People forget how good of a year Pryor had that year passing. Pryor with 247 yards passing. Brandon Sane, 103 yards rushing. Dane Sanzenbacher with 113 yards receiving as the Buckeyes blow out Marshall 45-7. Man, that team was good. They need to just restore all those wins. Ridiculous.
They need to restore all those wins. They need to put up the 2012 national champions banner. And then when people ask about it on Saturday, we just need to be like, what? That's always been there. What are you talking about? Just like all these Southern schools are claiming more natties. That's a more legit natty than most of the ones most schools claim.
Yeah, I mean, they used to not have, like in the horseshoe, when they first put up the national championship signage, which they didn't have for years, and I used to always like clamor for them. They finally did in the aughts. Remember, they didn't have 1970 up there initially.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be up there, for being real.
No.
Like, that team finished 5th in the AP poll. The football writers gave them the national championship before the Bulls were even played. Then they lost to an average Stanford team. Then they retroactively put it up in the horseshoe, 1970. So if they can do that, they can definitely just do what they want with 2010 after the NCAA just let Michigan completely off the hook. But
2012 is more legit than 1970, Dave. I'm just saying 2012 is way more legit than 1970. The only undefeated team in the country that year.
Yeah, and they would have played Notre Dame. Yeah, I hear you, but like at least, I mean, they would have had to at least beat Notre Dame, which they would have. So I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but like, man, some of this, yeah. Anyway, all right, let's move on. So one of the things that I was hoping to learn yesterday was who's the starting right tackle. Not like, we're going to rotate and all this, but that was one where Coach Day stopped short of maybe saying what was really on his mind. And because if you read between the lines backs, he said, okay, we're not going to make that declaration right now who's the starting right tackle. But then he said, paraphrasing, but Phil, meaning Philip Daniels, will play extensively. And he said Ethan Onionwa will play as well. Sure sounds to me like Philip Daniels has won that job.
This is the biggest surprise coming out of the spring, I think, at any position, is that I think we had all locked in Ethan Onionwa as, like, not just starting, but the left tackle. There are people talking about he could have been an NFL draft pick coming out of Rice. Comes to OSU. He was a big-time guy that they had to work to get. I mean, everybody wanted him. And between Sierreveld and Philip Daniels stepping up big time, I don't know. I don't know if Onionwa was rested on his laurels a little bit, or those guys just did that well. But it sure as heck looks like it's Philip Daniels to me, based on everything we're hearing from Ryan Day. I think he said something to the effect of, like, Phil's going to play a lot. Okay, so does that mean you're going to give Ethan a chance, or are you just saying Phil's playing? Like, that's the way I read it. If it was the other way around, I think you would say, well, Ethan's going to be on there. We're going to see if Phil rotates in, right? That's how I would read it if he thought Ethan Onionwa was ahead, but it looks like it's Daniels to me. And by the way, that's not a dumb program move. Daniels has 3 more years eligibility starting this year. So and he's a Ohio guy, went out to Minnesota, sort of took the job there down the stretch last year. And then whenever he became available, OSU was like, yeah, we want this kid. And it's one of those Ohio kids that in the past we would have lost out on. I mean, you and I have talked about this for years, that there's always hidden Ohio kids that don't get the same shine that they should. And this is Philip Daniels. And luckily with the transfer portal, Ohio State was able to bring him back home. And by the way, this is going to be one of the most Ohio-heavy starting lines we've had in a long time. If it is Daniels, it's 4 out of 5 starters from the state of Ohio.
Jake Cook, and he's not starting, but Jake Cook's another one that fits into that underrated Ohio kid who's going to be a good player here one day. I think he might even crack the 2 deep as a true freshman this year. He might be that final guard on the 2 deep, but we'll see what happens. But I'm with you, man. Ethan Onionwa is going to be, if it works out this way, maybe the highest paid backup offensive lineman in the country. So I'm pretty sure he's getting low 7 figures. I'm pretty sure. And hey, like we talked about yesterday, Patrick and I were talking about this on our Bucknuts instant reaction after the Ryan Day press conference. Sounds like Philip Daniels just went to work this summer, just said, okay, I'm just going to work my butt off and put myself in the best position I can. That typically works in any facet of life. And he just came in ready to roll. He's a physical dude. So it might not even be that Onionwa had a bad offseason, but definitely Daniels had a great one, and they like his physicality. So Onionwa, and also back when they were saying Onionwa was kicking inside the guard at times, where Philip Daniels was just playing right tackle in practice. I'm thinking they're definitely grooming Onionwa to be the swing tackle, and he can also back up at guard. So depth is good. Depth is good, my friends, as we all know, especially in football. All right, so we didn't learn who the starting right tackle was, but yeah, we did. We pretty much did. All right, did we learn who the top backup defensive tackle was? Not really. I asked Coach Day just point blank. I understand him not wanting to say one guy. If you had a game right now, or if you had a game in 3 days, who would be the first backup defensive tackle to come in the game? We know who the starters are with Cade McDonald and Edric Houston, and they like them backs, as you know. Hopefully those guys stay healthy. And who's going to be that first guy? He didn't want to say one guy, but he did mention 3 guys. This is interesting. First guy out of his mouth was Will Smith Jr. After he mentioned K-Mac and Edric, he said Will Smith Jr., he said Tywin Malone, and then he said even Jarquez Carter. He didn't mention Jason Moore. He didn't mention Eric Mensah. Does that mean they're out of the mix? No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. We'll find out. But I continue to think it's interesting because Larry Johnson mentioned Jarquez Carter just unprompted last week. Now Coach Day kind of unprompted. It's not like, hey, talk about the freshman defensive tackles. No, he mentioned him, and then I asked a follow-up. Hey, is that kind of a pleasant surprise, Coach, that this true freshman Jarquez Carter is in the mix? And he gave a pretty good answer. Like, yeah, he's a quick twitch guy and everything. So again, we didn't learn for sure who the top backup D tackles are, but it sounds like it might be backs. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it sounds like it's going to be Will Smith, Tywin Malone, and true freshman Jarquez Carter.
Well, you and I have talked about Jarquez Carter numerous times on here. I mean, it's no secret. I've been saying my biggest fear about this team is the D tackles after the 2 starters. And one of the conversations you and I have probably had 2 or 3 times over the course since spring football is that Jarquez Carter stands out from the rest of those guys because he's a straight up D tackle. he was in high school. He's one of those slightly undersized junkyard dog kind of bowling ball kind of players that, some of these other guys are these big athletic dudes that you're like, they're big enough. They can play D tackle. Let's put them in the middle, right? Jarquez Carter is a straight up D tackle. I don't know how else to put it, right? He's one of those guys that maybe doesn't have he's not as tall as the rest of them, right? He doesn't have shoulders that are the width of like a doorway. He's just a big dude who wants to take up blocks in the middle and go. And I won't be surprised if he's on the field just because he looks like a football player. There's a lot of athletes who play football. Jarquez Carter's a football player. And there's a difference. There's just a difference. And I know that people are commenting about Jason Moore being injured right now, and we understand that. But Jason Moore is another one that looks like an athlete who's figuring out the football side of it. So I won't be surprised one bit if Carter's in there. We've been waiting forever for Tywone Malone. I mean, let's be real. Is this his 5th year, 6th year, something like that after playing baseball and transferring in? And, he's one of the only guys ever to win a national title in baseball and football, I believe, in the history of the NCAA. Too bad the national title was at Ole Miss in baseball, not Ohio State, but that is a different story. So I guess we're going to see. I mean, this is still a big issue, though, Dave. Like, we don't know. And, I think the coaches don't really know. It may be a while until we really do know. But your D tackles aren't going to play 65 snaps a game. They're not going to do that. You have to rotate guys in. So a little bit of frying pan into the fire here for these backup D tackles, and we're going to see how it goes.
It's another thing I love the opener. Like, we're going to find out like right away. And like, I'm always fired up for the opener no matter who it is, Oh,
yeah.
Anybody. But it being Texas is crazy. So yeah, we're going to know right away. So while our hearts are thumping, being nervous before every play and watching everything that happens and just like being so into the game. It's also going to be interesting taking notes and seeing like, okay, Will Smith was the first one in, or maybe Tywone Malone was, or, oh, wow, Carter's playing more than I thought. Because Coach Dave made an interesting point. He's like, we have certain guys that we're convinced will be in the mix this year. He didn't say Carter by name, but he was answering the question about Carter, and it makes a lot of sense. He said, we have guys that we know will be in the mix this year that they might or might not play in game one. Like a guy like Jarquez Carter fits that mold. Like, they feel like he's in the mix, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play in game one, but he might. Okay. One thing we did learn, and I like this a lot, is Brian Hartline will coach from the box. Yep. I like that. I'm a huge believer. I know you are as well. Coordinators should be in the box. And I get you want to be able to look your player in the eyes. You want to be able to look your guys in the eyes and talk. I get that. But like, I think it's superseded by being able to see the field because you can't see anything from the sideline really. And it's just a sterile environment. And I really thought Hartline would want to coach from the field, and maybe he did. And Dave said, nope, you want to be a coordinator for real, you're going to be up in the box. So I like that a lot. Also, I found it interesting that, and we all know this is true, but it was still funny. Coach Dave was asked, Coach, do you still have veto power over offensive play call? And he said, oh yeah. Yeah, of course. I kind of joke a little bit, but not really joking. But your thoughts on, Coach Hart coaching from the box?
I think that's the spot. That's the spot, man. We've said this before. It's easier to see how the coverage is set up from above. When you're at ground level and you have gigantic 6'6" men in between you and your line of sight, I mean, the reality is it's easier to see how the coverage is developing from above. There's a reason coaches film is from above. And from a coordinator's point of view, you have to be able to analyze that and recognize that quickly and adjust. And so the other thing is Ryan Day, who is a significant part of the play calling, is going to be in the field. He needs those eyes in the sky to be able to give him the information he needs. So we've said this before about virtually every coordinator that's come through is they need to be up top. And that's absolutely where I thought Hartline would end up. What I really enjoyed was hearing Ryan Day talk about how he still had veto power, and that he said we could have made a lot of money broadcasting the recordings of me and Coach Meyer disagreeing. And when he said that popped into my head. You remember the last year Urban was the coach, and Urban looked wildly uncomfortable the entire time that Haskins was dropping back to throw. You could tell he was like, I don't want this. I don't want this. Run the ball. I don't want this. Dwayne is throwing it everywhere. I could just imagine the headset. Hey, we're going to run it this play? No. Why not? Come on. You're killing me. That would have been amazing to get to listen to.
Oh man, I mean that's like when as soon as he said that, remember it was all the taxi cab confessions on HBO. Like when he was like, you could make a lot of money if you would. He's like, I've always said this. I have heard him say this before. If you would like record the conversations between coaches like over the headset and then sell them, you'd make a ton of money. That'd be hilarious to hear that. All right, I'll let you guys know about DraftKings and a great deal you guys can get. The rivalries, the marching bands, the upsets. Saturdays just got way more fun. College football is back. Think you know the game? Put your knowledge to the test with DraftKings Sportsbook and turn your picks into big payouts. With live betting, rivalry week odds boosts, and more, DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to own every Saturday. For example, our Buckeyes are favored by 2.5 points in the big showdown with Texas this Saturday. You guys confident the Buckeyes will win by at least a field goal or more? Head to DraftKings and place your wager. And here's something super special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5, you get $300 in bets instantly, in bonus bets instantly. Bet $5, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's right. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code Bucknuts. That's code Bucknuts for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, man, $5, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's really cool. They've been doing those deals for a while. They did a lot like when it first became legal in Ohio, then those went away after the first year. But now DraftKings bringing them back. Great stuff there. Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets. All right, what else did we learn? What haven't we learned? I like what he said about Julian saying, because, he was asked, because Ryan Day obviously was a quarterback. Not quite as much pressure at New Hampshire, but still, for him, that felt like the big time. Going into your first start, what were you telling yourself? What are you telling Julian? He said, I didn't handle as well as I wanted to. I think he ended up playing well, but he went into it thinking, Ryan Day's like, I want to throw for 300 yards. I'm going to throw for 4 touchdowns. He was telling Julian, do not have expectations as far as I'm going to put these types of stats up. This is going to happen because you don't know. What you need to do is take care of every play, do your job every play, and that stuff will take care of itself. The only stat you need to worry about is winning the game. When Coach Day talks like that, it sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but he's always on point. That just makes so much sense. He keeps it simple, but it's still profound, if that makes any sense.
Well, he's right. At the end of the day, all you're trying to do is come out of this with a win. I mean, look, if Ohio State wins 45-44 and Julian Sand throws for 7 touchdowns or whatever, or if Ohio State wins 13-12, we're still going to be happy with the win. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do is get out of this game with a W right off the bat. And if it just means you make the one play you need to make. Remember Notre Dame a couple years ago? Kyle McCord was terrible until the last drive and had the drive of his life. Yeah. We were all like, all right, hey, he got it done, right? Now, we don't know how that played out, but still, at the time, just win, baby. That's all you got to do. Yep. And, the other side of this too, Dave, is both these teams are going to be so different by December. Both these football teams are coming into this game with a lot of question marks, a lot of guys that haven't played yet. We're talking about the 4 new starters on the D-line for Ohio State. Texas has 4 new starters on the O-line this year. So there's a lot of unknowns in that particular matchup right now, even though I think we know more about OSU's D-line than we do Texas's offensive line. Both these quarterbacks are essentially new starters. Texas has rebuilt their entire wide receiver core. Ohio State has new tailbacks. I mean, it's a new team for both sides. And everybody's projecting kind of based on the talent that they see. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to get through this. And if they end up meeting in a playoff down the line or something, it's going to be a totally different football game. It's just how it goes as these teams evolve over the course of the season.
Specialists. Half was answered and half were not, meaning he was asked, all right, who's the starting punter? Who's the starting kicker? Who's the primary kickoff returner, primary punt returner? For some reason, he was very coy about kickoff returner and punt returner. It's probably as simple as he just didn't want to tip Texas off on who's doing what back there. Patrick thought maybe just because so many guys are in the mix. I'm like, we're as of yesterday, 4 days away from the game, now 3 days away from the game. I think they know who's going to be their punt returner and kick returner. He didn't want to talk about that, but he did say the incumbents have won the kicker and punter job. So you got Jaden Fielding, who beat out Jackson Corville, who I assume now will redshirt and have 2 years left. I think that's great that Fielding beat him out, because I said if Fielding beats him out, this Corville's proven he's a good kicker. He was good as both years at Ball State was very good. So if he comes in here and has a decent game, which I hear he did, Corville, and Fielding elevates his play and beats him out, that's good on a couple levels. That means Fielding had a good camp and has improved. And now you get Corville, you're able to red until 2027 because he never redshirted at Ball State. Also, Joe McGuire will open the season again as the starting punter. Nick McLarty, his countryman, fellow Aussie, gave him a run for his money, but McGuire is going to begin the season as the starting punter. So unpack all of that. We know who the kicker and punters are, but we do not know who the return men are yet.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with the kicker situation. If you have two good ones and one has 1 year eligibility left and one can be redshirted and then play for two from a program planning perspective, that makes your life a whole lot easier. It also helps to have a decent backup in place. So, I'm not surprised on that front. And from a punter's point of view, I think I expected McGuire to come out with this. Even though the other guy can punt the ball 8,000 yards, you still got to be able to control your punts. That's part of the battle, especially a place like Ohio State. You're not going to punt from your 5-yard line all that much. You're going to be punting from the 40 and 45 and dropping it down inside the 20, and that touch is important. So, I think that wasn't really a surprise on either front. As for the kick returner, it makes me wonder if they're going to try the Caleb Downs returning punt experiment some more against Texas. I know they had tried it a few times last year. Then Ennis was the guy for the most part. So I'm curious to see how this pans out. And I just think Ryan Day is sitting here like, I know what I'm doing, but I'm not going to tell you. There's a little centrifuge before the first game. Come on.
Right. I think that's got to be it, and I hope Caleb Downs, I wrote about this. I want Caleb Downs and Brandon Ennis to be punt returners this year. Does that mean I need them fielding every punt, every game? No. But in big games, big moments, I'd like to see. Last time I checked, Caleb Downs didn't field many punts as a true freshman. Took one back to the house when he was at Alabama. Didn't field that many punts last year. Took one back to the house and Ohio State had the lead in the Indiana game at the time. That really just sent them into overdrive. And it was the first time in 10 years Ohio State had returned a kick or a punt for a touchdown. I need me some Caleb Downs back there this year, Bax.
Do you know what I hope we do? I would love to see us bring back the 20 years ago Glory Day punt return formation of Ginn deep and Holmes 10, 15 yards up. Yep. So you can't punt away from either one of them. They staggered them, so we always got a return. I'd put Ennis a little further up, and I'd put Downs back and say, all right, where's this one going? That worked so well. When you have two dynamic guys like that, I would love to see that.
And a lead blocker, an automatic, because Santonio would come in there and pop. Even Teddy, for being he was as we know, Teddy had a long, really good NFL career. Teddy was no wimp. He'd stick his head in there, even though he was probably 170 pounds, dripping wet. Dude, can you imagine Brandon Ennis and Caleb Downs being that lead blocker? Oh, boy. Either one of them. Both of those guys are hardcore. Yeah. So I like that idea. It's been a while since. I wonder if Coach Day's even aware that they used to do that here.
I'm sure Jim Tressel has said something to him about it. Our lieutenant governor is not a neutral observer in this game on Saturday. Okay. Let's just be real honest here.
That's damn right. And Brian Hartline, I think, was part of, even though he came after those guys, I think there was some of that. Brian Hartline returned a punt for a touchdown once at Ohio State, at least once. I was in the press box covering the game.
Didn't Hartline overlap?
Around, and he took it. It was a pretty long punt return.
Hartline was a redshirt freshman the year they did that, because didn't Hartline graduate in 2008, I want to say?
Yeah, because he redshirted in 2005, and then he was a redshirt freshman in 2006. I believe caught the first reception of the season that year, 2006. Troy Smith's what ended up being Troy Smith's Heisman year. Yeah, I think Hartline caught the first pass of the season. His first game as a redshirt freshman, I think. I'd have to look that up.
Man, and it was 2004 and 2005. You had the Holmes and Ginn combination on the punt return. So Hartline would have been a redshirt freshman. I think he broke his leg in high school or something like that, and that's why he redshirted.
Right. Rubisky played as a true freshman, but Hartline.
Ryan Rubisky. Yep. Yeah. Well, that year was, Gonzalez, Ginn, Roy Hall, Rubisky, Hartline, they all played in the NFL. What a fleet of receivers that was, man. We've been wide receiver U for 20 years. But
they started out the Michigan game that year, and I'll never forget they started the Michigan game out that year in 5 wide. People were like, what are they doing? I thought they were just going to try and run the ball.
Roy Hall had a 2-yard touchdown reception on a 5 wide on the 2-yard line. It was amazing.
Love it. Tressel would always do the unexpected. He would not be conservative Jim Tressel against Michigan. He would do something they have not seen all year. He would set them up. He was the master at it, and he faced some really good Michigan teams too. All right.
That 2006 Michigan game, one more and I'll let you move on, I swear. The greatest Jim Tressel moment I've ever seen of preparing for Michigan was the 2nd and 1 or 2 at the 40, and they lined up with quick, they ran to the line like they were going to do a quick snap, and they snuck in Ted Ginn as the tight end.
Oh, yeah.
And Beanie Wells flew through the line like it was a fake handoff, and Teddy was behind the D before they knew it, and Troy hit him over the top. Never did that the whole year. And it was an exact scenario in that spot in the field. The team was ready for it. You knew Tressel had it in his back pocket. And that was a perfect example why Ohio State went to the national title game that year and beat Michigan. Tressel understood it.
On that play, you could see Leon Hall almost say, "Oh, bleep." And you saw like tight end Ted Ginn sneaking past him. And if if it's even, he's leaving. And I don't know if it was really even that close. Old Leon Hall, who my Bengals ended up taking in the first round.
Oops.
They have a nice history of taking like Michigan guys, like Dax Hill. They never learn. All right. What we did not learn, because we couldn't ask just as many questions as we want to. I got a few questions in, but I didn't get to this one. This was deep on my list. I really didn't think Coach Day was going to declare a starter here between McClain and Hartford at safety. Both guys, I think, are going to play a lot back. So I'm curious to get your take on this. I think it'll be McClain as the starter, but they're going to need both guys. I like that Malik Hartford, at the very least, is going to provide depth there. And I think Fahim Delane's going to round out the two deep there. But what do you think about that safety battle?
I think it's McClain as well. I think Hartford has shown some flashes over the past couple of years, but to me, it looks like it's McClain. I just think that's been the guy they've talked about more. We've heard good stuff about him. At the end of the day, I think he's the guy to be back there. So we'll see. I definitely think Hartford's going to play a fair amount, though.
Thank you for the plug, Mike Schaefer. Yeah, what we learned live is going to set records on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to beat one of those like losses to Michigan where you had like the entire Michigan fan base coming in as trolls. Like, hey, our numbers were good, so they're just making us more money when they do that. But
we promise we won't call for Ryan Day's job if they lose this time, guys. Okay.
Coach Day's a legend forever in Columbus. What's the list of? It goes a list of Ohio State coaches that have won a national championship: Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, and Ryan Day. How about that? All right. I know you have a heart out here, buddy. I know you got to get moving here. You have a work meeting, allegedly. So maybe you just want to go on FanDuel, or excuse me, I screwed up. Maybe you want to go on DraftKings and just.
We don't go on FanDuel here, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about. DraftKings only. DraftKings only.
DraftKings. All right, bud. I appreciate it, Bax. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Go Bucks. Beat Texas.
You can catch his column every Sunday. It is The Bucket. Thanks again to Bax. Great stuff there. I'll keep it rolling here for just a couple more minutes. So, yeah, I did start one earlier. If you guys have some questions that I didn't get to, fire them away here in the chat, and I'll get to as many as I can. John on YouTube, what is the two deep on the D line? Yeah, I mean, my projected two deep is, obviously Kenyatta Jackson's had a great camp, just a great year completely going back to spring, summer. He looks awesome entering his fourth year. So Kenyatta Jackson, and I have Caden Curry as the other starting defensive end, but Bo Atkinson basically will be a starter, even though he might be technically a backup. Logan George is going to play a lot at D end, and CJ Hicks is going to play a lot at D end. So they're at least five deep there. I really like what they have going on at D end. D tackle starters seem, obviously set with Caden McDonald, 1 tech, Hedrick Houston, 3 tech. And then, like we were saying earlier, man, I don't know. Right now, I would bet that Will Smith Jr. and Tywone Malone will round out the two deep, but Jarquez Carter's in the mix. Right now, Jason Moore's banged up. Eric Mensah maybe just isn't ready yet. I haven't heard anything about him being banged up. He's just a redshirt freshman, though. So I would guess Will Smith and Tywone Malone will probably be the first couple guys you guys see. All right, yeah. So, John on Facebook, what is your final thoughts on the outcome of the game, win or lose? I think Ohio State's going to win a close one. I think Ohio State, I think people are underselling their talent a little bit. Not you guys necessarily, but like some national pundits, because you can understand if you don't follow this team like religiously like we do, you see, they lost 14 guys to the draft. A lot of those guys were not just draft picks, but were taken early in the draft. Several first round picks, second round pick, third round picks. Even the guys that were taken on the third day, I don't think there were any like 7th round picks. All those guys were like 4th round, 5th round, a couple of 6th rounders. So it wasn't like they just had a bunch of like late 7th round picks. So they had 14 guys drafted. So people are looking at that and I think they're sleeping on this talent. Then again, how good is Julian going to be right away? I have no doubt he's going to be very good here eventually. Is he going to be very good 3 days from now? mean, that's a lot to ask for a redshirt freshman. So, but I do think Ohio State's going to win a close one. I'll give you my official score prediction with J-Book on Friday. But, yeah, I think the Buckeyes – hopefully it doesn't come down to a last-second field goal. I don't know if our nerves can take that. Yeah, spoiler alert, I might pick the Buckeyes roughly by 3 points. So I'm being pretty boring because the spread is 2.5 Ohio State. Some people at some places it's dropped to 1.5, but it's holding steady at 2.5 most spots. ESPN's Football Power Index actually gives Texas a slight edge, like 53% to win the game compared to 47% for Ohio State. This is just your definition of a coin flip game. And I think being at home really helps Ohio State here. I know 20 years ago it was the exact opposite, right? Like Texas won in Columbus and Ohio State won in Austin. And but I think home field helps the Buckeyes here. I think if this was in Austin, I might pick Texas in a close one. This being in Columbus, the talent on this team I think is a little underrated. I think people are sleeping on the offensive line a little bit. You don't hear much about how they're one of the best offensive lines in the country. Like I think Phil Steele does a great job with his position rankings, but he's got them like 8th or something like that. So, considers them like good, but not like one of the elite offensive lines. I think they have the potential to be one of the best. And by one of the best, I don't mean one of the top 10. I mean like one of the top 3 offensive lines in the country. I think a lot of people are also sleeping on the running back room because you lose Travion, you lose Quinshon. It's like, who are these guys? Well, James Peoples is going to have a big-time year. C.J. Donaldson was a really good get. Bo Jackson's ready to roll as a true freshman. So they got their pair and a spare, and they can go deeper than that if they need to. So I still can't believe this weather that we're going to have too. I still can't believe that. That's as I've told you guys, I was like very concerned. One of the reasons I was ripping the decision of it being a noon game, and typically I like noon games, but Texas should not be a noon game, even though the weather's nice. It still should not be a noon game. But I was thinking, okay, the one of the multitude of reasons that this should not be a noon game is it's going to be like 90 degrees or not, or it'll be like low 70s. Geez, it's going to be chilly for tailgating purposes. That is just the way I like it. Okay, I know you guys like it too. Who likes a hot tailgate? You like a football tailgate. You like to be a little chilly, right? Not too cold. Not too. You don't need it to where it's like freezer bowl or anything like that. But nice chilly tailgate in the morning, some kegs and eggs or whatever floats your boat. Heck yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, and I can't wait to see Keith on Facebook talking about the defense. Do we surprise Texas with the top defense? Yeah, I think he says, I love the ends and linebackers a lot. I like the DBs a lot too. I like the starting D tackles. I like what Matt Patricia is going to bring to this defense, and we don't even know what that is yet. Easy for me to say that, I know. I like what Matt Patricia is going to bring to this defense. What exactly does that mean? I don't know. No, I do know, though. I mean, he's going to be multiple. I don't know exactly what he's going to do because he's not going to tell anybody. And when we meet with him, he gives us enough. So he's not Belichickian to the T, but he's got some Belichick in him, which understandable. Worked for the man for 15 years. But he gives you more than Belichick would for sure, because Belichick would give you nothing. We're on to Cincinnati. But he also stops short of giving you too much. There's no doubt about that. Knowles would go in a little more detail. Patricia's a little more jovial than Knowles, though. But he's secretive. But I have no doubt he's going to mix things up a lot. So what does that mean? We're going to see more odd fronts. There's no doubt about that in my mind. We're going to see at times some 3 linebackers out there together. They love those top 3 linebackers. Love them. And how couldn't you? Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, those guys are just, my gosh, those guys look like big NFL linebackers. They look like big defensive ends when I see them out there at practice, and there's the starting linebackers. And Patricia's like, I feel like I'm at home. I love big linebackers, especially ones that can run like the wind, like those guys. And Sonny now entering his second year as a linebacker, I think he's going to have a huge year. Arvell's ready to break out, and they love Peyton Pierce. So we're going to see more odd fronts. We're going to see more 3 linebackers in there together. We're going to see him move Caleb Downs around even more than they did last year. And they moved him around a lot. I thought they used Caleb Downs really well as a chess piece last year. Patricia's going to do even more of that from everything I hear. They want to get him close to the football as much as possible. He's going to be basically like a linebacker out there, but who can still, drop into coverage, and there's a reason he's the best defensive player in college football. So I like the DBs overall, man. IGB and Jermaine Matthews and the depth with Devin Sanchez and Aaron Scott, Lorenzo Styles Jr., Bryce West, Miles Lockhart, all those corners. I mean, life is good at corner. Life's good at safety. You get the best player, defensive player in college football. I think McLean's going to be a good first-year starter, presuming he wins the job. And, kind of thought I might be concerned about depth back in the spring. I'm not concerned about depth at all at safety when you have, let's say, Hartford loses the job. Boom. Then here's your top backup, and Fahim Delane is going to be ready to roll as a true freshman. They have Inky Jones could step in if need be. So, man, I like everything about this secondary. The only concern I have on defense is backup defensive tackle. It's the same concern we've had all offseason. It's the same one I have. I think especially getting Bo Atkinson kind of just pushed them over the top at defensive end. I was feeling pretty good about defensive end in the spring because they really like what they had out of Logan George, who transferred in from Idaho State, and they, CJ Hicks moving full-time to defensive end. I'm like, all right, they got 4 guys there. And getting Bo Atkinson, I think, really pushed them over the top. Okay, that's a really good room. And then if need be, you could, I think those true freshmen, Zion Grady and Epi could help out if need be, but they probably won't be needed this year. They probably won't be needed because they got all those older guys ahead of them. That's an old room. And I mean that in a good way. I mean, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, they're in their 4th year. CJ Hicks, even though he's new to defensive end relatively, played some last year, entering his 4th year. Logan George entering his 4th year, even though he's a 3rd year or 4th year junior, 2 years left. Bo Atkinson entering his 4th year. So veteran group there at defensive end, talented. Kenyatta Jackson, I love that he's just turned into a monster, because you always knew if he could just go from 235 to 265, which he's done, and just keep really strong and keep his quickness, maybe even get faster, which he says he has. Look out, and that's exactly what's happened. So I expect a breakout year for Mr. Kenyatta Jackson. All right, guys. Really appreciate you guys joining us for the show today. Thank you to Bax. Great stuff from Bax. Thanks to everybody for your comments and questions in our live audience. Thanks to everybody who is listening to the show. We appreciate you guys very much. I know you have a ton of choices, and I know you guys take advantage of a lot of those choices in the Buckeye podcast realm, but glad you guys make the Bucknuts Morning 5 part of your routine. And again, we'll be with you again tomorrow. Dan Rubin will be with you with the boys. I'll be back with you with J-Book on Friday, BTA Fridays, Prediction Fridays, and then I'll be with you right after the game for What We Learned Live, the podcast that starts immediately following the game with a cast of characters along with me. So thanks again to Bax. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day. Go Bucks.